Hello and welcome. Another edition of the Baseball Blue Books Coach's Corner. Each and every Thursday, Coach Dave Serrano and myself, we spend some time with college coaches from around the country, all levels, all divisions. And today we're going to get a great opportunity to talk with a college coach that had been around from Nevada to Arizona and now spends his days in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the head coach for the LSU Tigers, Coach Jay Johnson. Coach, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You got it. Awesome to be here with you guys.
You know, Coach, having lived in Louisiana for 6 or 7 years, I know that every family on the weekends is drenched in purple and gold, and that goes from football season all the way through the spring at the box for baseball season. I just would love to know your thoughts, being from the West Coast and, having been a head coach at San Diego, assistant coach at San Diego, Nevada, Arizona, and now in the land of purple and gold. What has it been like for you moving from the West Coast into the Southeast there in Baton Rouge?
Yeah, I think specific to LSU, there's no place like this. I mean, the fan support is unbelievable. I really thought that I understood it when I came out here. And then the very first inter-squad game we were playing, we were practicing before and we're doing some base running thing out at second base, like stealing third. And my back was like to the crowd. And then it was like, okay, go get a drink. Then we're going to get settled up, start our scrimmage. And I turned around and there was like 2,000 people sitting in the stands to watch us inter-squad. And I was like, whoa, I hope we're good tonight. They're amazing. The Omaha thing this year, took it to a whole nother level. And what I mean by that is just being around town since then. I mean, it's literally like everybody that I bump into says I was there. And they're telling me when they were there. And it was almost like 3 different sets of fans over the course of the whole College World Series. And you start adding it up, the whole stadium was purple. There's a good, 100,000 people from Baton Rouge that went to the College World Series this year. And I don't know that there's another place in the country like that.
Jay, it's always great to see you. I'm so proud and happy for the success that you've brought into Tiger Nation and other programs around the country from the West Coast. Now you're in the South. Walter and I talk a lot about physicality, about that high school kid and the physicality they need to get to the college level and be successful in their freshman year. How much different have you seen the physicality from now that you're in the SEC compared to the West Coast days, where you were around good teams and great programs at every stop you've been at, even when you were at Point Loma and when you started your career? What's the difference in the physicality from the West to the South?
It's a great question. The first thing I'll say is we're not going to recruit anybody that looks like me. So no, and Coach, you're right. And just what an opportunity I feel like I had as a young coach, getting to coach with Rich Hill, who in my opinion is one of the best baseball coaches in the country, but then getting to play against your team, at UC Irvine and Coach Horton and Coach Gillespie and, Andy Lopez and all these great coaches where, Ben Orloff, your shortstop, is as good a player as there is in college baseball. Out here, it's an entirely different game. And it's been very eye-opening. And what I've tried to do with, putting together our teams, no matter where we've been, is we're in position or well-positioned to win any type of game against any type of team in any type of environment, whether that be low scoring, slugfest, pitcher's duel, 1-run game. And it's just a different brand of baseball. I talk about this all the time. One of the times we went to Omaha, Arizona, we led the country in sacrifice bunts. The next time we went, we led in slugging percentage. Last year, we hit 144 home runs. So we only stole 30 bases, in 33 attempts. It was just, there was no point in running unless I felt like we were going to be safe, where this year's team might be built a little bit differently because we're so pitching dominant in terms of what we're trying to do. So I love trying to put that piece together, but there is a massive difference when you walk into a ballpark, whether it's at Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Florida, and just the bodies of the players. And I think it's evolved over time too. I just think players are getting bigger and stronger and more physical, but there's definitely a pronounced difference out here in that.
One of the things that I would love to discuss with you, Jay, is the evolution at the Division I level of the when the student athletes, for me, it's like they are better prepared in some cases with regard to travel baseball or the portal. However, they know that when they step onto that field at the box, you got to be prepared to be going 100 miles an hour. Do you have advice for families and student athletes that live, eat, sleep, die, want to be an LSU Tiger? What are some of the things that they can be doing, whether individually, in their backyards or, when they're practicing with their teams, that is really going to open your eyes or your staff's eyes with regard to potential recruitment at LSU?
Yeah, it's a good question. Kind of more in a general sense, because this is a very narrow funnel, to get to a school like this. I think just how things have evolved, whether it's the internet or social media, young players can kind of get caught up in the image of things or the final destination of, hey, I want to be committed to a school, where how you get there and how you develop is the most important part of that, and how you improve your skills to be able to open up opportunities to play for myself, for Coach Serrano, or anywhere at a great school across the country. So that would be my advice, would be to focus on the improvement, the development of your skills, so that when you arrive at whatever school you're going to, you give yourself a chance to contribute and help that team win. I think nowadays there's just a lot of on the front end of hey, I just want to get to that final destination. And so just kind of that thought of improvement on a daily basis. Coach mentioned the physicality and the strength of players nowadays. Human beings are just getting bigger. And so really putting time and effort into that, time and effort into developing skills that show up on the field, that can help a team win. I would put my focus on that instead of maybe, I don't want to say worry, but putting so much thought into, hey, I want to get here and the destination.
Jay, I've always respected you. You're a tireless recruiter, tireless worker. With the way the rules have changed now, you've got the transfer portal. You're at a place that even before you won a national championship, with the tradition that program has, that kids want to come to LSU. Especially in that state, but all across the country. The brand is known in baseball and in all sports. As a coaching staff, how tough is it for you to go out? I know you just are putting together your signing class, your fall signing class, but how much money do you guys hold back thinking, well, who knows what's going to happen in the summer with the transfer portal? Has that made it more difficult to jumble the numbers now?
Yes and no. I think, I came into a situation the first year where we actually had some scholarship available to do some things. And, Jacob Berry transferred here from Arizona with me, obviously one of the best hitters in the country. Riley Cooper, same kind of thing. And just seeing during that season, I tried to picture wait a minute, what would this team be like without the 4 or 5 guys that we brought? And it was unimaginable. I feel like we'd have been in last place in the SEC, because I quickly learned Arkansas got better because of the portal, and A&M got better, in Tennessee. And, going back to your original point about the physicality, as players get older, they're going to get stronger. I think what I learned from that, it was going to be important, but then the second part was fit was going to be extremely important as well. So the next year, our class that are now sophomores, we signed the #1 recruiting class, and there's a lot of really talented guys that I'm excited that are developing here. Some of them played last year, when we won a national championship. Some of them pitched, and now they're going to take another step. So as we've gone along, we have not been high in numbers in the portal. We've tried to be really, really high in quality and really hit on those needs. Like our shortstop this year, Michael Braswell from South Carolina, we really needed a shortstop. And so it was a perfect fit for that. There's other positions along the field where we're saying, no, we're going to stick with the guys that we have and are going to develop. So just trying to find that happy medium and be thoughtful in how we utilize our scholarship or build our roster is what we're trying to do.
Now, I have a question that came in from a family that big LSU family out of Destrehan on the West Bank in outer New Orleans. And their question really caught me off guard, but I think it's a great one. They wanted me to ask you, their son is a catcher, and he's a high school age type catcher. And he has a catching coach that is teaching one knee, and his high school coach is very anti one knee. Is there any philosophy that you have as a coach with regard to that question, specifically with regard to one knee, or some of the things that are taught by outside instructors that try to get taken in to college programs and high school programs?
Yeah, first off, I have a different belief in like just what you just talked about right there. Like if I have a player in our program, like we're going to run our system, our player development process, but we brought players here because we thought they were good enough. And usually if they're good enough, they have some type of background of skill development that is good for them. So if there's, in this case, a catching coach that has really helped one of our catchers develop, I want him to go spend time with that person over the break. And then generally what I try to do in those situations is get myself or one of our coaches on the phone, whether it's a pitching coach, a catching instructor, a hitting coach, to talk about the things that we're doing and really try to blend it so the player can be successful. You know, in regards to that style, and I've had a really nice run of pitching coaches here over the last few years, and they're all different and all have different thoughts on that. What I try to articulate is I want strikes to be strikes. I mean, the count determines everything in baseball. And so I want our catchers to just make sure that strikes are strikes. And then the other thing is the free bases usually decide winning and losing. And if there's a lot of wild pitches and pass balls and the catcher's running to the backstop, you usually have a really bad team. And so take that information, determine what the strength of our catcher is, where they're best suited, because the running game is not as big as people think. I mean, every pitcher in the SEC is going to be 1.25 to the plate. They're going to vary their looks, their holds, their timing. It's the 14 best catchers in college baseball. And so it's really hard to steal bases. So for me, the receiving piece and getting them in a good position to receive is the most important. And then their ability to block is going to be important because you're probably recruiting pitchers that have really good out pitches, which sometimes are hard to block. So for me, then you take the catcher and decide what's best for them, let the pitching coach and them and the catching coach kind of figure that out.
Hey, Jay, you know, I mentioned earlier about your tireless recruiting, and sometimes people can get labeled as that, just bringing in great players. And I'm going to say this with strong conviction. I've been around you a long time on the West Coast, and I've followed you, obviously. I think it goes on maybe more unnoticed than it should how much your programs develop players. And you said something earlier about the freshman class you brought in that was a top-ranked class and how much many of them gotten better. And I say that with conviction because you've had turnovers. You've brought in assistant coaches, and they've gone and been head coaches at other places. What do you think it is about what you do? I know you have wonderful communication with your players. Sergio Brown, who's been on both our teams, that says you're one of the best communicators with his team that he's ever been around. What do you think it is that you do to allow yourself to not only recruit players, but you develop players to their maximum ability?
Well, I appreciate that. I think the first that you mentioned, the communication part of it is the most important thing. You know, lucky for me, I don't have a whole lot else going on. So I can be like completely invested in our team and our team's success all the time. I think on the development side of it, I think something that we've done a really good job of is in over an 8-year period, I've been a first-year head coach 3 times. And that's like super extreme, but really tried to take the philosophy of like, hey, we didn't recruit all of these guys, so we really need to try to develop them and give them a good template for improving. And I really believe we've done a really good job of that. But I think it starts with communication. I think it's how we spend our time. And you know this, coach, as being a head coach in the SEC, if you're not careful, like you can get pulled in 1,000 different directions. Yes. And I just, when I came to LSU, and we have a great community here, and I'm out speaking and doing that stuff all the time. But I did try to make a point of like, if you're bringing me here, it's you believe I can help you get where you want to go, and I have to be myself. And that's just immersing my time with the team, the players, development plans. Like this morning after we're done, we played a game on Sunday, and we're going to go through the entire game, and we're going to start practice with a good video review session to improve on those things. And then practice is going to be designed right along with what we talked about in the meeting. And so I think it's just being thoughtful and having a plan and not skipping steps. I mean, we all know what you want out of a pitcher. It's 3 pitches, it's pitchability, it's competitiveness, it's tempo, all those types of things. So we should train them the best we can to get them there. It's like try to give them the answers for the test and then prepare them that way. And so just kind of having a plan, or a lot of coaches use the word process, to get them to where we want to go. We try to be super intentional about that.
Jay, when I talk to a lot of parents and student athletes about college baseball specifically, I try to get them to understand that fall baseball is the most intense period for a freshman, largely due to because in high school it's the spring and there's really no fall, baseball at some of these high schools from across the country. But when you get to college, you need to be fully prepared to be almost in season form. And can you talk about that transition from high school to college and the significance that fall baseball carries with regard to playing opportunities in the spring?
Yeah, it's a big jump, especially right now with how the NCAA has evolved with the COVID still, honestly, and the transfer portal and the draft being smaller. Like there's just a lot more older players in college baseball, than I remember, when we're on the West Coast, it's a 40-round draft and your juniors are leaving all the time. So I've talked to the freshmen a lot about from where they were in high school baseball in Louisiana, Texas, California to week 1 of the SEC is going to be the biggest jump they're ever going to make in their baseball career. It's like they're going to the moon compared to what they were doing before. And so the fall becomes really important. And then what we've tried to do with the fall is like, don't do everything. Like, take half of what you want to do and then really try to master that half and really trying to keep it simple, but be really good at the simple elements that we think drive winning, and then get them accustomed and acclimated to that. And then there's going to be some tough steps. I mean, if you're a freshman hitter in our program right now, you're seeing pitching like you've never seen before in your life. And the first few weeks, like it was tough on a few of those guys, but they've kind of stayed the course and got the game slowed down a little bit and have improved. And now they're starting to catch on a little bit, which is a really good thing. So just for me, it's about just simplify it, cut it in half, master it, and then help your new players get acclimated to the type of team and player you want them to be.
Jay, I think one of the things why I feel you were such a great fit for LSU is that even though I know that fan base expectations are always out of the roof, I still think your expectations are even higher than theirs on a daily basis. So I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute. The last 2 national champions, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, how tough the SEC is. They didn't make the tournament. What have you done, you and your coaching staff done, even though I know you've got a loaded team, you've emphasized a few times that your pitching is off the chart. What are you doing as a staff to not allow that to happen to the LSU Tigers?
Great question, and I appreciate it. I think the first thing that I did is I tried to peel back the layers of, okay, why did that happen? And the first thing I came up with, this is the only sport, baseball, and this is the only conference that this could happen in. And then you understand that, and it's like, okay, how did it happen? We'll talk about winning a national championship. How do you win a national championship? And you know this, Coach, because you won one at Cal State Fullerton, is you build to that point. You know what I mean? You get old players, experienced players. They've gone through success and handled it well. They've gone through failure. They've improved all their skills. You've recruited enough to have the right type of team to get through adversity. And that's no different, I mean, with us than it was with Mississippi State and Ole Miss. I think we can't guarantee it because of the difficulty of our schedule, the difficulty of our league. But what we've talked about is trying to kind of honor our process that got us to that point. And sometimes it can feel a little tiring. Like, wait a minute, we just won the national championship. we won on Monday. Tuesday, we flew back. Wednesday, we had our celebration, which was awesome. And then Thursday and Friday, I was doing individual meetings with our players. And then Saturday, I went out to recruit Luke Holman, who's probably going to be one of our starting pitchers. And so in recruiting, really tried to finish the summer good, tried to really, while we were in Omaha, not get left behind, with the transfer portal recruiting. I thought we did a good job of that. Then you get into like August and September, from the hitting side of it, that's like 6.5 weeks where we're building them kind of from the ground up, or step A to Z. And then in the fall, no, we're going to use our 20 hours a week. We're going to develop the team the way that we always do. This step, get into player evaluations, really sending them out in December with super specific things that they have to do, having a great January leading into the season, and then understand that, you're not trying to be last year's team. I mean, that's almost unattainable. That's one of the best teams in college baseball history. We're literally trying to win one game as they come along and then prepare them to do that. And then, hopefully do enough of that early to where you have another opportunity at the end of the year. But it may seem so crazy that you go from here to here, but I believe the SEC and in baseball is the only sport that's possible that could happen.
So true.
Yeah, and one of the things, I'm going to stay on that, and I have, you both have been our head coaches in the SEC. I firmly believe I've been to probably 6 or 7 SEC tournaments, and the caliber of talent, top to bottom, regardless of the year, is always elite. And now you're about to welcome in, the University, David Pierce at the University of Texas, Skip Johnson from Oklahoma. I mean, the SEC takes on a whole different dynamic now. Just your in-season schedule, your conference schedule is amazingly challenging. And I really would love for you to discuss the mindset of a coach trying to get student athletes to understand you want to crave this. You want to crave that level of competition. You don't want it to be easier. You want to become better. And that SEC quality conference schedule really builds character and elite athletes. Would you agree with that?
100%. There's nobody that's going to come play here that isn't trying to become a Major League Baseball player. It's the wrong place because the demand on execution, demand on improvement, the demand on your mental game is so high because of the challenge that it is, that it's just going to require you to keep getting better. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. And then we talk about it all the time. It's like, okay, you want to do that. Well, this pitcher that we're going to face, they're all going there. So you need to show an aptitude to be able to take the caliber at bats that you belong in that thought process for professional teams. You need to show you can control the baseball on defense and handle your position at that way. Have the awareness, the mental game, the mental strength to withstand both the highs and the lows. And I mean, Coach knows what I'm talking about. You get to Hoover after 10 weeks of this thing, and it's almost like, wait a minute, now we got to go do this?
Yeah, it's nuts.
So it's awesome, though. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I think what's cool about here is, the fans, on Tuesday night, this feels like a super regional. And then you get, Tennessee or Florida or whoever in here on Friday and Saturday. It feels like you're in like a Omaha type environment.
The amount of RVs that begin to roll in on Thursday night for a weekend series with Tennessee or Vanderbilt, it's just absolutely amazing. And then you get guys like Chris Guillot getting them all fired up with the, go. There's nothing like that atmosphere at the box. It's amazing.
Yes, sir.
Last thing I have for you, Jay, just has Coach Bertman shared with you yet where they buried the magic in that stadium? Because it's, I've been there from West Coast teams, obviously at Tennessee, and the magic that comes out of that stadium that gets thrilled into your team is amazing. It is amazing. And you're right. I think besides having a great program, great development, great players, great fan base, there's advantage playing there every day in front of that group of people because it prepares you for where they're going down the line. My last question, how do you block out the outside noise from yourself and your team? Because again, the expectations, the unreality of some unrealistic expectations, sometimes a fan base, how do you do that yourself, and how do you prevent your team from seeing it?
Yeah, really good question. First off, you're talking about Coach Burtman. Like, without question, the best part of this job for me is I spend time with him like 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, absolutely, hands down, the best. I mean, because all I did as a young coach was listen to all of you guys. You know what I mean? And whether it was going to the convention or when we were playing you, talking about things that you guys do at Fullerton or Irvine, and just thinking back to everything I learned from him as a young coach when I heard him speak or in his videotapes, and now getting to like hear it again firsthand while we're eating a sandwich at his kitchen table is literally like the coolest part of this job. As far as the outside noise thing, like, I just kind of feel like, honestly, being from the West actually helped me a little bit. Like, I've just gotten so into like, this is what we have to do to be successful. And anything outside of that, it has no effect on it unless you let it have an effect on it. And so really just tried to stay true to our plan of developing the team, our plan of recruiting, our plan of developing players, and really just always remind myself that on all of that is, you can't have it both ways. You can't have 13,000 people in here going crazy and making it difficult on the opposing pitcher without them having high expectations for your performance. And so
that's a great point.
What do they want? They want a high performance. So how do we get to high performance? And then just force myself into this mode of like, no, just head down, work, and improve the team.
Well, Jay, I want to say thank you. I know the fall is an extremely busy time of the year, and I really appreciate we really appreciate you taking the time to join us, because I think this is a really special opportunity for families and student athletes to gather some insight into arguably the top program in the country year after year. So thank you very much from my perspective. Go Tigers, and I'll be down at the box this coming year. I was down at the box for a couple series last year with the Morgan family. Look forward to coming back this year.
Yes, sir. Great seeing you guys.
Thank you very much.
Success, Jay. Thank you.
Every Thursday night, we want to make sure you're here for Coach's Corner. Enjoy your Thanksgiving coming up, and thank you for joining us.